Welcome back to the Daughters of the Moon podcast. We're grateful that you can join us for another week. And today we have a special guest with us, Kyle Henderson. The Tibetan word for meditation, gom, means to be familiar with oneself. I feel like this is a great place to start a journey. My whole life, I have been exploring the who, what, why, and how of the I am, trying to become familiar with myself. The closer I get, the clearer and more vague I become. I have looked through many perspectives now in this one life, which has expanded understanding. Starting in childhood as a cattle rancher, I learned of the cycles of life and death, a practice in impermanence, followed by a journey in high-level athletics to explore the limits of the physical body and the interrelationship with the mind's beliefs and programming, pushing into high-risk physical sports to explore death and altered states of mind that arise in those moments. Rebuilding a broken body numerous times with the practice of yoga and healing modalities was a gateway to altered states of mind. Meditation created a less reactive mind that opened the possibility to become familiar with my thoughts and actions and grow of changing them, and would like to share my skills from my experiences, which can bring more awareness and opportunities to create a life with more ease and joy. So welcome, Kyle.
Yes, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome. Well, I was, as we were talking about beforehand, I saw you at the Banff Wellness Retreat, and had such a wonderful experience there in general, but in your class with the sound meditation you did and the little bit of yoga practice that you gave us, it was really intriguing to have you on our podcast to discuss with us your journey and just share with our followers just your amazing energy, because I found that there was just so many things that I took away from that. So
that's so great to hear.
So can you tell us a little bit about what put you on the journey to where you are now?
Yeah, that's interesting, even though I wrote it, of hearing the description again and just having like all these avenues of perspective branching off from that. And I definitely joke all the time, like I'm just on a standard route, standard program of being born a cattle rancher and then going into high level hockey and football and then oil and gas. And then of course, yoga follows that. and meditation and healing modalities. Do a lot of healing modalities too of craniosacral, Reiki, Qigong, Psych K. So a lot of diving in on one-on-one sessions with people too. And I laugh on that because I thought it was actually so unique and so individualized. And then I had a Vedic astrology reading from this Dr. Katie Jane, I believe it was, and supposedly my aspect is Aslasia, which as she was reading it, she's like, okay, so you probably were super sensitive as a kid, and it didn't quite fit in with your surroundings, and so you started to hide that, and then you probably struggled in school, and I failed grade 1. And so you had this aspect where you're super trying to prove yourself and catch up, and you'll probably become an engineer. And I became a power engineer, and you'll probably push in that avenue until you've satisfied your immediate surrounding criticals, and then you'll go into yoga, meditation, and healings. And I was like, oh, wow. Okay, well, that's my life. So maybe not so unique. Maybe completely all pre-planned out. It seems like it. So yeah, that was pretty interesting hearing that, and just even to my wife's really diving into human design and gene keys right now and seeing all that. Are you familiar with
just
those?
Vaguely a little bit about the human design? It really intrigues me because I just think anything that, well, it all intrigues both of us, right? Because it's just anything that gives you that aspect into who you are and why we're here and what our purpose is and how we serve others and how we move forward in the best way. Yeah, is intriguing.
Yeah, it's so intriguing to me that there's like it's a way to like have a description laid out that this is probably who you are and within a range of kind of ditch to ditch if you're doing good or bad in certain areas. And it kind of gives you allowance of all the things that you thought were wrong about you, that you were doing wrong, that you were incorrect, or like I'm not doing it like everyone else. It's like, oh, actually that's who you are, that's how you're supposed to be doing. Just gives so much allowance to like, no, you're perfectly on the path of you, and you're not a bad fish, you're a good monkey or something like that.
Yeah, exactly, right? And I think that's the problem in life, is that we compare ourselves so much with other people as we're taking every journey in our life. Every step, it's like, oh, am I as good as him? Am I on the right path? Did, my brother did this, or my sister did this, or my parents did this. Like, am I following the way I'm supposed to? And yeah, we are, but we're doing it in our own way.
Well, we sure are. We sure are.
Yeah. And it seems like the more I look into it, that we're just somehow like on repeat of doing the exact same thing over and over again in infinite timelines, but just in different costume and a different background. And we're just doing the same script, but trying it out in different time frames and different costumes, and over and over and over again of the same thing, and just feeling the understanding of emotion. It seems like emotion is the aspect that we're exploring, of that individualized aspect of emotion that expands consciousness into understanding possibilities, that little bit more, that tiny fraction, a bit more, that expands consciousness into infinite realms, even more. I had a friend say the other day that they were downloaded an image that everything's happened already in the future, but as kind of as I was saying, like as a script, and then we have to play out that script. And so to play out that script, kind of gave me that ideology, or that idea that the emotion is it. And I really like Dr. Zach Bush, that he talks a lot about that. You look at all the animals in the wilderness, and they've all mastered a skill set, like a deer or a frog or a mouse. Everyone's mastered an aspect, and they're so different. And the human aspect is with our heavy head that we're carrying around till we're 20 some, of like, I'm still unable to look after myself. I just have to look after this brain that actually is the filter for emotion, and that we're experiencing the emotion of everything. And I think it's so cool too that our body, our minds are built upon stage after stage after stage, like building additions onto a house. Like the brain is almost like a reptilian brain with a mammal brain built on top of that, with a human brain built on top of that. And then we function through up and down through those, depending on our stress level and our capability to rationalize and reason. And the more that we're stressed, the more that we go to programs, and the more that we go into programs, the more we go into animalistic survival techniques that go back to like single cell amoebas, that we didn't really have many defense mechanisms other than even shutting down, like the freeze response. That is the first aspect of trying to hide. If you're a single cell amoeba, you can't even run away, you can't fight. And so we have that in us, of this like this aspect that is built. And I think it's so amazing seeing the programs, and like how the nervous system works, how the brain works, of how we're constantly just running programs, and we gain access to those programs through different techniques of Psyche or Yoga Nidra, or different meditations, or whatever you do to start, or just stepping back and seeing your programs by creating a space between reaction and response through whatever method you use. Then you can start to change those programs and see that those programs are survival, or like Richard Schwartz and his IFS, the internal family systems, and we have thousands, or at least maybe a prominent dozen of personalities that have stepped forward at times, that still probably think that you're a 5-year-old or something, and are behaving accordingly to protect this 5-year-old. I kind of went on a tangent there. I can't remember where we started.
That's okay.
It was great. It was great.
Yeah, I think it's wonderful and I love it. I just recently got to try some Psych K, which I really loved because I love how it deals with our limiting beliefs and the things that actually hold us back from getting to where we're going and how ancestrally things impact our lives now. And I just find that really intriguing. So yeah, so that was neat. I didn't know that you did that too.
Yeah, really intrigued with the brain. Like I definitely as a young child, I felt like I was always watching adults, watching everyone and just trying to figure out why they were doing what they were doing. I was so intrigued of like if someone switched and all of a sudden they were angry and they were like being so indifferent, so different than their typical behavior. And it was like, why, what was the switch there? What happened? Or just watching the motivations or being a child and listening to adults talk and hearing how they would posturize to be better than the other person on being something like stressed or tired. And like, well, that doesn't make sense that you're trying to say you're more tired than the other person. That's not a benefit, but you guys are really fighting over who's the most tired. I'm like, there's something there that is like, I have to figure this out. And actually, even maybe I'll go back and go through kind of my life because I don't know. I really cherish my life. I think is all we all should. Our lives are a roadmap. I believe into our spiritual awakening and our understanding of this divinity that I spent my whole life really pushing my body away. So yeah, I was super active as a child and born in town, and then about just before my first birthday, we moved out to the farm, and so I had lots of room to play in nature and just I had lots of energy, probably ADD or ADHD, whatever, and but it was just go out and play in the trees and had like whatever it'd be about 300 acres of land to go chase coyotes and have coyotes chase me and that was my space of playing in the water, playing in the trees, and that felt so right. And really didn't want to be in anything organized at all, and nothing with other people other than maybe a dog or two that was with me, and that felt perfect. And then definitely going into the school system, like had some learning disabilities. Dyslexic and just didn't get things. And I was then diagnosed then or did a bunch of tests and I'm both gifted and challenged at the same time. And so that was definitely a struggle and yeah, repeated grade 1. And that was a huge emotional aspect to me that stuck with me and kind of getting put into classes, pulled out of my class and put into specialized learning groups and felt really separated, distant, behind and inferior. And so that definitely put a nice chip on my shoulder to motivate me to go into certain things and to push hard in certain aspects. And saying that, it's so amazing, those things that hurt so much at the time seem to be like, at the time and maybe your whole life, an unsurmountable challenge that at one point turns into a gift that you probably chose as a soul that yeah. And some of them can be really painful, really hurtful, and they turn into gifts at one point.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I around that time, kind of 6 years of age, I definitely had a big experience with kind of my family, my cousins and friends, and I probably was a little too sensitive, a little too daydreamy in the trees, and just creating images and worlds of fantasies in my minds without actually even playing with something on the ground. and definitely had an experience where I was ostracized for that aspect, and I put that that self and jammed it away, tucked it away, and didn't see that arise again till whatever, 40 years later or something like that. And I definitely pulled in a facade of a warrior aspect, and then got into being the kind of the archetype of the people that I put priority on, of the people that were fighting everybody, wrecking everything, being super athletic, and yeah, just being that kind of alpha male, that warrior archetype of doing that. And that led me into playing hockey, and I really didn't have a lot of athletic skill sets, and I saw myself as like kind of this soft, unathletic farm boy. It wasn't even really like like super into, like, we didn't have a big ranch, so we're pretty close to town, so there's a bit of an aspect that we weren't really cattle ranchers, and we weren't really city people or town people. Kind of in the, once again, it's separated and ostracized and finding no home, which is perfect now when I look back on it.
Yeah.
And so that really drove me into athletics. Athletics was the ticket, I thought, to become happy, and anybody that was an athlete in my mind was like, oh, there's a happy person. That's what I need to do. If I can be that, then I'll be happy. Then people give me respect, and I'll make it through the world. And then I tried hockey at 5 and quit, and then started again at 10, and I was way behind starting at 10 even, and now you'd be nowhere close. But I still had the idea that I'd be getting into the NHL or something, or definitely had that dream, and progressed through from the very bottom leagues up to Bantam AAA, and then Midget AAA, which is kind of where you're still in, sorry, I think I said AAA, but AA, where you're still before high school's ended, and having capabilities to move into university or paid aspects in Europe, and possibly into minor league systems or the NHL. And then I just started to accumulate massive injuries, and at that time it seemed horribly debilitating. I had quite a few knee injuries, MCL tears, and I found out hip dysplasia in football by running every day. And but still in that process, oh yeah, I kind of skipped a step. In that hockey aspect, I didn't have a lot of finesse skill set, but I had the capability of being a very physical presence. I'm not super tall or big actually, but like 5'9", and I think I'm 160 right now. I was about 200 pounds as a high school kid playing hockey, and just being a farm kid carrying around 200 pounds of bales and pails and water everywhere, throwing 200 pounds here and there, just getting that really thick, dense. So I had a skill set of being that physical aspect on the ice or on the football field. But the biggest thing I liked about hockey that really intrigued me of that was that when you were in that everything happened so fast that there wasn't time to think. And I was just amazed how some people could have everything kind of come together, and some people, everything would fall apart. And I started exploring that even at that age. And it seemed like if you were in a happy state, things would open up, that your vision would open up. You'd start seeing more of the ice. You'd maybe like could make passes behind your back, and you wouldn't even, the person, there's no way you could see them visually, and they're coming up the ice, and there'll be a perfect pass right to their tape, or you'd be able to move around someone and pick a corner in a millisecond. And that seemed like it was this programming of this repetition of doing practice over and over and over and over and over again, which would create the program that would arise when there wasn't time to think. It would just, the whole system would go, there isn't time to think, let's use a program. And if the program was in there, you grab that program, and physically, I just knew it physically that way. And then I started moving into meditation before hockey games, where I'd see the whole game unfold. And if I did that before a game, the whole game completely changed. I had such a higher level of skill and such a higher level of success that if I saw like all these incidences, possibilities, and where I would go and where the others would be, and what be the kind of percentage of capabilities of higher potentiality, that was already gone through, so it could flow even faster. It was already in a program. And so that aspect of the mind really intrigued me, of that programming and that visualization, and then looking into other stories of people of high level NHL or other sports of seeing, moving beyond your five senses, of seeing stuff you shouldn't be able to see, time expanding where you would have, it felt like 5 minutes where it was not even 1 second, and you just move through things, and once again it seemed like it was an aspect of joy or stress, and I later found out from Dr. Joe Dispenza's work that it seems like you move into this gamma brain state, flow state, when you activate stress and like pleasure or excitement at the same time. You're activating your sympathetic and parasympathetic at the same time, and it moves the brain state into a state that we a few years ago hardly knew anything about. And now we're really exploring it in a lot of avenues, Dr. Joe Dispenza being one of it, and Steve Coulter, I believe, has written a bunch of books kind of that aspect. And you hear the word flow state a lot now as we move and transcend five senses. It's really, really neat.
Yeah, so
And so that kind of led me into, I had a bunch of injuries and hockey was done, and I felt completely destroyed, and I had to shed a personality and figure out how I dressed, who I hung out with, how I thought, how everything changed. I felt like in the time it was like my soul had been ripped out of my body, my heart was ripped out, and I was a shell of a person. I was no longer that person anymore, that my whole life was evolved around, and I didn't want anything to do with team sports anymore, but I still had this athletic thing that I thought was important. So I went into snowboarding and went into border cross racing. So kind of like motocross, but on a snowboard, going down through a track with 4 or 6 people racing and trying to not get hit out of the air and such. And once again, I really got pulled into the mind aspect on that if I walked the course once and then ran it through my head, I would do so much better than if I tried to run the course physically as many times as I could before the races. And just seeing that aspect of that meditation that amazed me. And I was really into anything that I could change perceptions to of reality. So as fast as I could go, if I could get over 100 kilometers per hour, definitely no helmet at that time. And if I could be dropping cliffs of whatever height or going 50 feet of a jump and seeing what would happen, and it would seem like everything would change, time, capability of visual aspects, and just completely intrigued by that. Or if you're crashing and time would once again extend, and that's really what pulled me into that. And then I started really hurting myself in snowboarding. I gained the skill set to put myself into those brain states, but those brain states pulled me, so I kept pushing. And then I had 2 ACL knee surgeries and a full hip replacement and broken collarbones and wrists and a lot of concussions, probably over 10 concussions. And so just a lot of damage on the body. And in that time period, I got into paragliding too, which once again, that kind of aspect of seeing those high stress positions where the brain would change, the senses would change, that it wouldn't be physical reality rules anymore. You'd be breaking physical reality rules. And that astounded me more than anything. And then my kind of crux of that aspect was I was on a backcountry snowboard trip with split board where they helicopter you in there, they leave you in a hut and come back 5 days later, and you have to split board up and then snowboard down. And I'd taken a cortisone shot in my hip, so I didn't feel anything. And after the 3rd day, I'd completely finished off my hip, and it was no longer a cup, it was now just a flat ball. And my hip was just completely moving around. I still had to wait, I guess, 2 days for the helicopter. So I had quite a bit of like painkillers that I brought with me, but then also I basically just had a stick in my teeth. It was so much pain. I couldn't sleep. I just laid awake and all night long and stayed in the hut and just stick in my mouth, just trying to get through the pain. Got heli lifted, or all of us got heli lifted out. And then I just kind of kept deteriorating. My body dropped a ton of weight, probably 60 pounds or so. And I was getting close to 100 pounds. My body was going septic, and I was on a ton of drugs trying to just maintain pain. So my awareness was pretty limited. I don't have a lot of memories in that time frame. I had a walker, and I could pretty much get from my bedroom to the couch and couch to the bathroom and then back to the bed, and had, I don't know, a month or 2 months of that, as they were trying to expedite me in to get a surgery for a hip replacement. And that's kind of when I got into yoga nidra and qigong meditation and healing aspects. As yoga nidra is lying down in your back meditation, and that's all I could do. I couldn't do cross-legged meditation, sitting meditation. I could do laying down meditation. That was it. And so
There's
that
a lot to be said for
me.
yoga nidra, though.
Yeah.
Say again?
I said there's a lot to be said for yoga nidra.
Yeah, it's pretty accessible on so many levels. Yeah. Of just, you got pains, yeah, lay down. And then, yeah, the yoga nidra, I started feeling like some physical changes. My body would bounce as things shifted and changed while I was laying there, and I was astounded. And the thing that amazed me the most, I started accessing mind space and experiential aspects that I experienced in the physical aspects of snowboarding, hockey, paragliding, mountain climbing, those places, those high stress situations without any damage to my body. And so then I really dove into that, and along that route, I kind of got into yoga too. And after teaching yoga nidra for about 5 years, I just got into teaching the physical movement practice of yoga as well. Yeah, I think that's kind of where I'm at. Yeah. So a lot of damage to my body, which brought me into really exploring healing as well.
Do you think that's what made you go that way? Because of all the damages you did to your body, made you figure you need to go that way?
Yeah, I really wasn't getting the healing, the help from the medical system. So I needed to look outside of that. And that kind of forced me into avenues that my younger self wouldn't accept. So I definitely had to change paradigms of what was acceptable, and even like going into yoga, that wasn't acceptable as in my youth. That wouldn't be acceptable, and that was, I'd say, a hard one for my dad, a lot of my family to accept, of teaching and doing yoga.
Compared to what you were doing before.
Yeah, it doesn't really align with cattle and hockey and oil and gas.
Well, there's that stigmatism, right? Of this is what boys should be doing, and right,
girls
we should be doing this rough stuff, and this. Why would you want to, get in that place where your body and your mind are in alignment? And yeah, I think some people that's a hard one to cross that.
It's a lot of hurting yourself too, though. Like through this whole process, have you found out why you were hurting yourself so much? Like why you felt that you needed to do that to yourself? Was it to get to this other end of what you're doing now? Was that what forced you, or connected finally saying, okay, I'm done with hurting myself. Now I need to find out why I was doing that so that I can get that together? Like, does that make sense to you, what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, I definitely question that for sure, and trying to find the answer. And before I dive into that, it's amazing how, from my viewpoint, that the thing that we're doing wrong, that is our biggest challenge, everyone else can see it,
right?
And you can't see it. And it's beautifully designed that as a soul, you come into the physical experience to have a challenge, but you almost have like a program that you can't see what your challenge is, because if you could see it, you just solve it, and then you wouldn't experience all the struggle, all the challenge of getting to the solution by making all the 10 million mistakes of every single possible mistake. So it's a beautifully designed system that everyone can see what's wrong with you and you can't, so that you learn every aspect you possibly can about that aspect. So like in mine, I feel like hurting myself on the one side, yeah, I thought that being an athlete was the aspect that was of highest priority in the world. And so I needed to do like no stops to get to that position. And also then once I started experiencing it, then I wanted to see what the capabilities of the body were. I wanted to really explore and push. Like if I was climbing mountains, like I would be like, I'm tired, and be like, I still have 10 hours to go or something, and be like, well, I can just push through this. And then finding that when you're tired, that you can, it's a mental aspect that you can push through it and keep going. And then maybe you're 2 days in past when you said you were going to quit. Especially it's so neat climbing to the top of the mountains, and you get elevation aspect where you're not getting the oxygen through your blood to your muscles, and you can barely make a step. And as soon as you stop, you feel fine. You take one step and you're totally toast. You can't make another step. But then if you just keep pushing, and it's all a mind thing, there is an aspect of tiredness, but you can just push through so many things.
Right.
But in that pushing through, you create a separation from your awareness and the body, and the body starts shutting down. And I'm really, through my healing modalities, that the body is a fully communicating vessel that is playing charades with you all the times. It wants to communicate, but it doesn't have language. So it's using emotion, it's using sensations, it's using pain. Mine's used pain a lot. You told it to shut up. And then at one point you got to come back to like start communicating with your body again. And it's usually that it seems like that you've usually taken a moment that was unprocessable, and you've taken that moment and collapsed all information in that was valid at that point, and maybe even wrap it around with a construct of a protector and jam it somewhere into your body. And we just keep collecting these sticky energy bundles that start blocking up our river of energy flow. And then pain starts coming up to be like, hey, there's too many rocks here. There's too many bundles of energy pockets here. And you can go back and access those and either move into them and explore them, to release them, to process them, so that they can be processed and let go. Or I found too that just by moving energy, sometimes those will just release, because if you're looking at a soul level to experience something, it's going to keep coming. It just will look different and different and different. And I love from the Bhagavad Gita, like Krishna talking to Arjuna, it just keeps giving him a message, but in different levels. First, it's like a whisper, then it's a talking, then it's a yelling, then it's a screaming, then it's an overwhelming aspect of showing all infinite, terrible aspects that can't be ignored, and then coming back and like back to the talking level, like, did you get it yet?
Yeah,
so I think of like that.
Sometimes we need that lesson, right? Is like keep coming back, and it's like finally it feels like they're hitting you on the head with the neon sign, like, hello, did you hear me now? Are you listening? Are you paying attention? Right?
Yeah.
And from my perspective, it seems like if you don't get it in this lifetime, you'll get it in one of the thousands or millions in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. We may have to redo this one more time just till we get it right.
Till we get it right. That's right.
And yeah, with your question of moving through that, I think I had a bit of definitely an aspect of like self-hate and unworthiness, definitely unworthiness. And so if I felt unworthy, I would represent that in my actions of destroying my body, which is an aspect of me, an aspect of all of creation. And I would feel separate. So I would feel separate from whatever I could feel separate from, and feeling separate from my body would be an aspect of that. So definitely, it seems like the body was something else that I could destroy, but then definitely getting to where, yeah, sleeping was unavailable, and all day pain and unfunctionable pain is definitely that kind of a rock bottom aspect, and that aspect for me of, okay, have you done enough?
Have you hurt yourself enough already now?
Yeah.
To see this. Interesting, very interesting. It's I know that sometimes too, I don't know if you find it, but if you have some ADHD or something like that, sometimes what happens is we bring that into our lives and we try to make up for it in other ways, which is hurting ourselves or whatever. So we actually find out that we're equal, we are exactly where we're supposed to be. We've hit that milestone in our life where we go, there's nothing wrong with us, really. We just need to accept the fact that that's how we are, and we're going to accept all the things that come with that sort of thing. So we move beyond having to hurt ourselves anymore, feel that pain that way. We can become more together with getting the gratitude of, yeah, okay, I've lived that, I've experienced that, but I am this. I am this now. And it's being grateful and accepting yourself for on your own level sort of thing. Do you find that? Like,
Yeah, absolutely. Like even in my choices of jobs, I went through university not knowing what I wanted to do. I took environmental and conservation sciences at once university to be a park ranger. Then I went to another university to take education. And then I went to another university to take a year of business or commerce, and then another university to carry on commerce. And then ended up choosing or finishing power engineering. And that seemed like a justification for my struggles mentally in the school system before becoming an engineer, and going through that, and spent 18 years as a power engineer, and in that process trying to become a real estate investor as well, and move through that realm, and more for justification of external aspects for sure, because I felt unworthy of myself. So I almost had no desire, definitely, of power engineering, and hardly of the real estate, other than I saw that there was this long-term support that could be created of passive cash flow, of inflationary protection that could be supportive over long term, that would be beneficial. But I dove in with a lot of time getting certificates in commercial development, and at U of C in Calgary, and a lot of other education aspects to expand that consciousness, or that awareness, that knowledge. But I didn't really have any desire in that, but I put a ton of energy focus in there, and it wasn't my passion, but I almost forced it to be, of like, okay, this is the new thing that's this is where happiness lies.
aren't you an inspiration though? I mean, you've taken it from, like so many different things in your lifetime to find out where you want to go, where you want to belong, sort of thing. So it shows people that are listening to you today and in the future, sort of thing, that if you follow it, you keep going after it anyways. Like, don't give up, and that's what I get from you is, don't give up, even though you've tried all these different things and all these different universities and all these, these things that you did to your body, and that it shows that shows to other people, to me too, is keep going, follow your dream till you get where you really want to go and what you want to do. Like, now you seem so at peace with what you do, it's wonderful to listen to your story and for you to share it. It's awesome. Beautiful.
Yeah, really, when you say that, it reminds me of that movie You, Me, and Dupree with, I think, Owen Wilson, where the one guy is a drifter, and then he's teaching like the 5-year-olds grade 1 or something like that. You got to find your isness, or whatever. And like, maybe you'll drift for 20, 40 years, but you'll find it. But I definitely think that like everything that's where I'm at now, like every challenge, every negative aspect was the perfect stepping stone to now. And like, I really dove into finance too. And I went and listened to Warren Buffett talk for 6 years in Omaha, Nebraska, to kind of figure out that. And there'd be a stadium of 30,000 people. And every year there'd be numerous people like, hey, I've made my first million or whatever. I'm doing exactly what you're doing, or I'm starting university, and I want to be just like you. What should I do? And I do think that Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger are like these amazing Buddhist monks hidden in these financial situations.
Yeah.
And Warren would be like, every time he's like, I want you to do you. Like, don't create a future plan of what, if I take this class and then get this paper and get this job, you'll lead me to success. he's like, follow your passions, and your passions will lead to success, and you'll be the best at what you're passionate about, and that will have value in it. And keep, investing in yourself, keep investing in your education, yourself, of what you're passionate about, and you'll be the best at what you're doing, and have that drive, that determination to go through all those struggles. One of his other lines was like how does it go? Something about some about winning. To be in a race, you have to finish the race. And so if it's kind of like the tortoise and the hare thing, like I think the story could be seen so many other ways, that the tortoise is maybe on a different race than the hare, the rabbit. If it just has to keep going, and it's going to have totally different experiences, and they're going to cross the same finish line, which could be death. And and it won't matter how you got there.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
But
do you like sit on the sidelines and do nothing, or do you move? Yeah, like you said, like keep moving forward, keep trying, keep taking those losses, those pains as like knowledge that you're tucking into pockets that you will build upon, and you'll have such an understanding in the future of whatever you're passionate about. And then you might not even find what you're passionate about till whatever, like way down the line, because you tried all the other things you're not passionate about.
but at least you tried,
Yeah.
at least you tried, and you followed them through as well. Each one of those things that you did, you followed them through, and that's amazing. So you, to find you where you are today, and you're really confident and love what you're doing. So, I mean, you worked well with it. long journey, but you've worked well with it to get where you want to go, right? If you were to give advice to anybody on that, knowing what you've done now, could they cut corners before they went there? Or do you have advice for somebody that's trying to find their passion and how to go from your way you've done it? What would it be?
Yeah, I like, life is interesting. Like sometimes you need to make sacrifices to keep things together and to keep this physical reality supportive, especially if you have family. I have a wife, 2 kids, and
Nice.
and so you can't just 100% follow passions, but you can always find time to follow your passions within the aspect that you're doing, to be supportive, and to see the aspects of what you're doing that you might feel that you're compromising as your stepping stone, your growth, that you're learning from it, and also to be present in whatever you're doing. That say if you're I always felt like when I was in oil and gas, I wanted to be part of the solution of that. So how could I be the best person as in oil and gas that's making it a better thing than making it a worse thing? And how could I be as conscious as I could? And if it, almost like consciousness is taking all these pieces, these beings of awareness, and putting them in all these locations to shift things. We seem to go through waves of, if you've seen the yugas, the calendar of the yogis, that's like 26,000 years in length of one cycle. And it just goes from closest to consciousness, where everyone believes that they're one with all, and manifestation is instantaneous, to like 12,000 years later, farthest away from consciousness, and everyone thinks that they're separate from source, and manifestation is really hard, and it's a struggle. And that's Kali Yuga, and we're supposedly just coming out of Kali Yuga, so this is supposed to be the most separate, the hardest time to manifest. But consciousness has to put the right pieces on the playing board in the right positions. If it just went goodies go here, baddies go here, well, that wouldn't change the flow. It wouldn't turn the pendulum from side to side. So wherever you're at is probably perfectly cosmically planned. And if you're the most conscious person in your space doing your thing, then that's probably what's amazingly perfectly designed. So to have that aspect that, like, oh yeah, like this is the thing, this is beautiful.
It is. So with your children now, you say you have 2 children, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you're watching them do their thing in their life. But now that you know what you've been through, how would you change that for them so they don't have to go through all those things in order to get to the bliss that you have found now? Could you do that, do you think?
Yeah, that's a big contemplation. I have lots. And like, it's interesting, you can go on Gene Keys and kind of look through and see like the main or human design or astrology of Western or Eastern, and see all the challenges that they're going to have. And then I think Gene Keys is nice because it has a range that they talk about, from the shadow to the gift to the city being kind of the mastery, the spiritual mastery of it. And so you have this pendulum swing or ditch to ditch of good or bad handling of your skills, your capabilities, your desires, which all your desires, you actually reside behind all those desires. So they're not you, you're just in a tractor right now, or a Ferrari or whatever vehicle you're in, and you're just driving that. So you're like, you find out what vehicle you're driving and you can always get out of that vehicle. So you're not bound to those, but it is good to know what vehicle you're driving. Like, if you're always losing the race, you're like, this tractor just needs to go faster than that Ferrari. It's not going to happen. So with the kids, I think on the one side, like really trying to see who they are. And even in human design, like my daughter's a manifestor, my son's a generator. So I have to approach them completely different. The manifestor is an initiator, the generator is a responder. So together they play really well, because she initiates, he responds, she initiates, he responds. And so they just go around the house or the room or life kind of doing that. And so really understanding who your kids are and what they need, I think is huge. That's helped me out so much. Seeing that aspects of consciousness and unconsciousness, but then playing that realm too of like, you can't completely separate and not give them any skill set of this current life, because kind of like in the movie, what is it? Fantastic. Anyways, this family moved into the trees, and then they fully disconnected from society. Then the mother passes and they have to come back into society, and they're basically unfunctional in society. They have different they're supposed to speaking English, but they basically have different language and different ideologies, and they can't operate in the world. And so I think you need to give skill sets of both worlds. But then it's cool too, when you look into the soul contracts, like on a soul level, it looks like you've asked another soul to harm you and to give you that chip on the shoulder that motivates you to find your thing, that you're going to explore the emotions, the expressions of it. And you've asked a soul to do a horrible thing to you, and it might be super horrible or kind of horrible, and they've agreed and taken on that karma. So they're taking on a punishment basically to help you out of, I need this and you need to do this baddie thing. And then if even as a parent, if you don't respond to that aspect of whatever the world's against me, then they have to look somewhere else to get that. And so it's an interesting dance. But it's so interesting, like the conversation between predeterminism and conscious choice is a profound one that I am exploring massively right now. And when I looked into naming our kids, with the first one, we didn't look in super deep on it. And then the second one, we dove so deep into like numerology, Kabbalion, which is numerology of astrology, of East and West, of human design, of everything. And it was amazing that both our kids and myself and my wife and everyone that we looked into, their name from Kabbalion numerology was the same as their birth date from human design, like the same characteristics.
Wow.
So was it predetermined that their names were put in our heads before they were even taking their first breath? So that predetermination of their hurts are predetermined, and even looking into blood type has certain personalities. So it's like, is their blood type chosen, and then their personality is chosen? So but I do like going back to like Gene Keys, it has that range. Like it seems like you really do a predetermination, but then there is a little bit of variance expression and of how you want to play out that character. Almost feels like a sporting event where a general manager picks the team of all the characters and knows the players' skills, their strengths, their weaknesses, puts them on the ice for the season or the field, the pitch, and then sees what happens. I don't know if that's a thing. So yeah, with the kids, I don't know. I think I'm trying to do my best, but if my best is horrible, it seems like that's perfectly aligned. Another thought just popped in my head. Ram Dass talked about, they did when he was still at Harvard doing testing, that they looked at spankings and if it had detrimental effects in the future if kids were spanked or not. And it really came back to the parents' kind of thoughts and motivations. If it was out of anger and maybe they're programming that's how they were raised and they were unconscious when they were doing it, then that had detrimental effects. And if it was out of love and maybe safety and was presented consciously of the spanking, that it didn't have any negative effects. And I even see that in myself when I think back. I remember pretty much every time that I got spankings from my dad or whatever, the physical punishment, and I don't remember any from my mom. And I had talks with her and she spanked me, but I don't remember any of the negative aspects with her, but I remember all the times that and how it hurt with my dad. And it was usually, it might have moved into unconscious aspects of programming, and still love me dearly. I don't want to put that out there, but really love me, but I think moved into unconscious aspects. So it just, as a parent, I'm trying to stay as conscious as I can of watching what I'm doing. And that's not 100%. I definitely fall into unconsciousness.
It's always a learning curve raising kids.
It really is.
They're emotional blenders. Like they just put all your emotions, your programmings that you thought you dealt with, and put them in the blender, hit frappe, and then, oh, that one's a rose, and oh, that one was from generations ago. Oh, that one's yeah. It's amazing, eh?
But your understanding is so much there now for them. They're very fortunate to have you and your wife, like, because way you think now compared to way back then, what you're giving them now is such a beautiful gift. And you've shared that with us too, right? And all the listeners that this gift that you're providing now, through what you've learned, people can take that and look at that and go, wow, keep going after what you want.
I really found too with like friends, and that if you try and push like the spiritual aspect on kids, that they have to reject it. Kids have to reject what their parents are doing to have an individualized experience.
That's right.
So, and knowing how the subconscious works, like the conscious mind is taking in 40 environmental stimuli per second. The subconscious mind is taking in 40 million environmental stimuli per second, every second, 40 million. So if you're aware of like the music you're playing in the room, you could be jamming in a ton of subconscious stuff by having the radio low with mantras or spiritual teachings or whatever, and they'll have any pushback from it. It's just going in as true. And you don't have to sit down and like, okay, now we need to talk. You need to learn this. And you have to go, nope, I'm not learning anything.
Yeah, that's right. Well, it has been so wonderful talking to you and hearing your journey. And I took so many things away from your original talk, and I took so many things away from this of, even just our minds and how to push ourselves a little bit further outside of our comfort zones by, listening to our minds a little bit more and allowing that consciousness to come in. So we really appreciate it. Can you tell everybody where they can find you?
Yeah, you can find me in Canmore at Canmore Hot Yoga. Our website's canmorehotyoga.com, so easy to find, and do healing sessions too of those cranial, Psyche, Reiki, Qigong, also here, and that's through the website as well. And mostly I'm hiding out and trying to be a recluse. I guess I'm doing a yoga nidra teacher training coming up with Sarah Harvey. It's on her website, sarahharvey.com. and I'll just be doing like a 50 hours, or I'll be doing maybe a 3-hour section of it, but it's profound. And my yoga nidra teacher is got a section in that too. So if you're interested in yoga nidra or consciousness, and you can do it online from anywhere in the world, and it's possible in 2 parts too, so you can do a little bit at a really reasonable price.
Nice.
Yoga nidra is so profound, and yeah, my teacher's not teaching anymore, but she is teaching in this, and I think she might have brought yoga nidra to North America, which is pretty profound, or at least one of the major influencers in definitely Western Canada, and expanding through the whole continent.
Oh,
Wow,
wonderful.
it is beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's how you can find me.
Okay, well, thank you so much for sharing space with us. It's been so wonderful and very
Yeah, you-
inspiring, and we
Thank
really
you.
appreciate you taking the time to share
Sure.
your knowledge and your inspiration with us and with our followers.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It was
Please come
great.
back with us again sometime.
Oh, for sure. I'd love that.
All right, well,
Thank you.
and everybody, we will see you next week.
We sure will.